Heading into Monday night's game, I was optimistic because the Hawks were incredibly depleted. I mean, there's no Herter, there's no Williams, there's no Gallinari, no DeAndre Hunter, no John Collins. There's a lot of pieces from the Hawks lineup that are out. That said, though, when I heard that Trae Young was going to be active for the game and starting and playing kind of a regular role, I got a little more concerned because I was worried about the fact of this Bulls team is not exactly at 100% themselves. You still have no Lonzo because he's out due to COVID protocols, Caruso with the injury. Especially with those two guys, you'd be looking to them to really cause problems for Trae Young on the offensive side for Trae and the defensive side for Caruso and Lonzo, and they're not going to be there. And knowing that this team was stubbornly going to insist on starting Coby White at point guard because even though Billy Donovan's out, Chris Fleming wants to keep the dumb dickology going. I knew that Trae Young could get up in this team's ass and cause some problems on Monday night. And that concerned me a little bit. And it certainly played out that way in the first quarter. It initially looked like it could have been a long night for Chicago because Trae Young in that first quarter was killing the Bulls. Just killing them. And what was really bad about it wasn't like the Hawks were doing these great creative things, utilizing screen roll and double screens to get Trae Young opportunities, to get him shots. They weren't moving him around a ton. He was just breaking down Coby White off the dribble and others off the dribble, and they couldn't stop him. They couldn't hang with him. And in that first quarter, like I said, he was dominant. He had 12 points and 5 assists. And then Cam Reddish, started off the game on fire and basically stayed that way pretty much throughout. He had 11 points in that first quarter. So the Hawks were up 36-31 after one, and I was just looking at it and I'm saying, man, Trae Young's going to be a problem tonight. Now, thankfully for the Bulls, the damage wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been because DeRozan came out and he was on fire. He was showing that he is the MVP candidate of this team. He had 15 points in that opening quarter, but that stubborn insistence on sticking with Coby White as a starter and wanting him to try and D up Trae Young was a disaster in the first quarter. And where this game started to change a little bit in the second quarter is when you got Ayo on Trae Young, because it changed. Trae Young wasn't as easily able to break down Ayo off the dribble. The Hawks were trying to do more pick and roll and do more double picks to try and get Trae Young off of Ayo. And even when Ayo makes a mental mistake, he has the quickness and the ability and the length to be able to recover. And you saw the one block shot he had on Trae Young. He came out of nowhere and blocked it, even though Young had burnt him. We have to stop being so goddamn stubborn here. What you saw out of Coby White in the third quarter is more of what you need to see out of Coby White. Utilize him in short spurts, and he can provide you some good until you trade his ass to get you somebody that's really going to help you. The stubborn insistence on playing him 25, 30 minutes a game is just dumb. You're a contending team now. Ayo is the better player. Offensively, especially for what this Bulls team needs, yes. And absolutely defensively. Absolutely. And if he got the same opportunities and the same amount of minutes as Coby White, imagine what Ayo could show you. Kobe's already in year 3. Ayo's just a rookie with limited action. I mean, come on. You got to be able to see this. People got to stop being so goddamn stubborn and stupid about this, namely the Bulls coaching staff, because you could see in the second quarter where it made a difference. Ayo slowed down Trae Young. He did. He absolutely did. And the Bulls, as a result, kind of turned it on in that second quarter. Levine came to life in that second. He ended up with 23 at the half. DeRozan had 21 at the half. And, it wasn't just Dosunmu, but it was also Troy Brown Jr. He had 7 points in the quarter. He gave you some quality minutes off the bench in that first half. Meanwhile, for Atlanta, Cam Reddish had 19, but Young only had 5 points in the second quarter. He was at 17 at the half. But again, that's a reflection of when you put Ayo on him, it forced him to work harder. And you have to understand your personnel. You hear Stacey King talk about KYP, know your personnel all the time. You got to know your personnel. You got to know what your personnel can do, and you got to know what the other team's personnel can do too. And you're going to feel like I'm just hating on Coby White. No, I'm actually not. I'm hating on the stubbornness and the stupidity of thinking he's the better player at the point guard position for this Bulls team. He's just not. And if you can't see that by now, heading into 2022, I don't know where you're at. I sure as hell don't know where the heads of the Bulls coaching staff is at this point. Because what you saw in the third quarter, You know, when the Bulls are up 69-63 at the half, what you saw out of Kobe in the third quarter, I think is a better indication of how he's best utilized. Like, limit his minutes. Use him in short spurts. And honestly, he needs to be playing against second-team bench guys because that's where he carries more weight. It's just stupid on a variety of different levels. But the Bulls grew their lead in the third quarter. They outscored Atlanta 29-24. Kobe had 10 in that quarter. Like, he was very good there. But his first half was absolute crap. Matt Thomas hit a couple of big threes off the bench. You know, if you're going to be playing Matt Thomas big minutes in any NBA game, you better be able to hit some shots. And in this game, he actually did. Bogdanovich tried to do what he could to keep Atlanta in the fold. He had 11 points in the third quarter. But, you know, while they were in striking distance, the Bulls were in a good spot. They were up double digits going into the fourth quarter. And two of the big three, as you would call them, for the Bulls stepped up and played huge in that fourth quarter. DeRozan had 13 in that final frame. Vucevic had 12. I actually wish in the first half they would have attacked Capella and the Hawks down low with Vucevic in the post a little bit more. Maybe get those guys in foul trouble, but they weren't going to be able to defend Vooch. They couldn't match his size and power. Like, utilize that. Utilize that. Cam Reddish had a great game. He had 14 in the fourth quarter. He tried his best to keep him in it, but it just wasn't enough. Ultimately, the Bulls were able to hold on, get a quality road victory. Yes, 130-118. DeMar DeRozan with 35 points to lead the way. Zach LaVine with 30. So your two wings were the two best players for your team. Played big when your team needed them to. That's awesome to see. And then Vucevic was very good in this one as well. 24 points and 17 rebounds. Meanwhile, for the Hawks, Cam Reddish had 33. Trae Young had 29. But, you know, that 29 could be a little misleading because he was only 8 of 23 from the field. And after that kind of hot start in the first quarter, he really cooled down. And he just did not have the same impact on this game after that first quarter. And, you know, I was worried about that going into this game again because I wasn't sure how the Bulls were going to be able to match up with him. And they did better as the game went along. Bogdanovich chipped in 20 for Atlanta, but it wasn't enough. And the curious thing about the way the NBA season works sometimes is you get to run it back very quickly. These two teams will be facing off again Wednesday night, and we're going to see if the Bulls can handle business against a depleted Hawks team again. Certainly hope they can. But I'm going to be yelling it into the sun, play Io more. This Bulls coaching staff is not going to fucking listen, and they're just wrong. Like, please tell me why you would justify playing Kobe White more, matching him up defensively against Trae Young. Kobe White is not so great, dynamic, or spectacular of an offensive player to overcome those defensive deficiencies. And yes, he has improved as an on-ball defender. But that means he went from very bad to mediocre. Whereas Io, already as a rookie with about 2 months worth of game action and even missed some time due to the COVID protocols, is already a good NBA defender, sometimes damn good. His upside, his potential is greater. Kobe's not going to be much more than what he already is. It just frustrates me is all I'm trying to say. You're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole with Kobe White, and it doesn't work. And meanwhile, this Bulls team could have won in even easier fashion if they would have played Io more minutes and had him man up against Trae Young the whole night. Like, he should have been shadowing Trae Young the whole night. I promise you things would have went better. Certainly would have went better in that first quarter. Because once Io started defending him, it made a difference. So if they're going to be stubborn, which you know they're going to, and try to roll Kobe out there more, they at least need to make sure they give Io enough minutes so that way he could be out there. Because you've got to know your personnel and what you have, and more importantly, what you don't have. You don't have Lonzo and Caruso in the lineup right now. You need some of that defense on the perimeter. And that's what Io can bring to the table. My hope is Wednesday night is that they'll work Vooch a little bit more in the post, but we'll see what happens. Sure would be nice to get another 25 or 30 from DeRozan and LaVine each. Both of those guys should be all-stars at this point. I hope we can agree on that. But nice Bulls win for sure. And they're sitting pretty. You know, we're almost into January now. It's starting to get a little bit exciting talking about this Bulls team.